Good evening. Welcome to EMK's News. I'm Susan Long. Tonight we will be discussing a variety of topics such as a missing child's report, the flu crisis, and the Republican presidency campaign. But first, we will discuss about genetically modified plants. Here with us, we have Dr. Norma Smith to help us with this subject. Also, we have two biochemists here named Celeste Baldwin and Catherine Clark. They will explain the positive and negative arguments for this technology. Dr. Smith, will you please explain to us what this technology does and what it produces? Thank you, Susan. As you said, I am Dr. Smith. Now, if you want to genetically modify a plant, you must first take two different strands of DNA. Please excuse my drawings. There's your first strand. And there's your second strand. Once you have your two different strands, cut off the part of the first DNA that you do not want and remove this section. Like so. This process is called splicing. Now put the second strand of DNA to replace the part of the DNA that you cut out of your first strand. Like so. Your final DNA strand will have the characteristics of your first DNA and the second. This gives the plant, it can give the plant the ability to resist drought or resist diseases. It could also create a new plant. This process can also be demonstrated in markers. If you take two different markers, it could be DNA 1 and your second strand of DNA. If you remove both caps, that could demonstrate splicing. And then put this cap from the second DNA on the first strand of DNA and the first cap on the second marker. This demonstrates DNA being spliced to make one plant. Thank you, Dr. Smith. That was very interesting for me. Before you explain what genetically modifying plants was, I had no clue what that meant. So again, thank you. Now we go to Celeste Baldwin to explain the negative side of these genetically modified plants.
Oh, hi! I didn't see you there. The negatives on genetically modifying plants are that organic foods are simply better and healthier. Corn that was genetically modified was found that it made animals sick, whereas organic corn did not. And this was according to the Institute for Responsible Technology. And don't we want the best for our future and our children? And children are the future. So if we take care of the children, we take care of the future. And we take care of the children by feeding them good food. So we can produce a lot of children and they can grow and they can produce children just like China. It can also introduce many new toxins to the plants. In the University of Idaho, they found that many genetically modified plants died when being injected with the DNA. And it brought forms of new diseases. And since it was Idaho that this took place, you can assume that they were testing on potatoes. And lastly, it's just completely and morally wrong. And Aquabio World agrees with me. We can't play God. We as humans need to understand that there are boundaries in life. And to Dr. Clark's comment about the flounder gene, she needs to understand that this is a fish that we're putting in a tomato. What if the person is allergic to it and then they die? They are directly killing someone because of this flounder gene. And they don't even label it. And also think about, what would God do? Would God want you to do this? Would God want you to kill that child? What would Jesus do? WWJD. Also, Rick Santorum supports this, and not to get political here, but I don't think you want to be like Rick Santorum. And that's the way the cookie crumbles.
Now, Dr. Baldwin, am I right in my understanding that we're eating genetically modified food right now without knowing it?
Yes, you are right about people not being able to see labels of genetically modified food because the FDA has not made it yet legal. And they should, because they do that for calories too. And, you know, it's pretty important to know what you're eating because you can have an allergic reaction and die.
Dr. Baldwin, interesting point of view. People will take that into consideration, especially the Rick Santorum comment. Very, very interesting. On the positive side of this controversial subject, known as genetically modifying plants, please welcome Catherine Clark.
Hello, I'm Catherine Clark, and I'm here to talk to you today about some benefits from genetically modifying plants. One benefit is that it would be resisting diseases. Some plants already have this trait, such as corn, cotton, and Malaspora. Another benefit from genetically modifying is that it is easy food supply because those traits inserted into the DNA will make the food last longer. This is good in case of a world disaster like 2012 and could save people from starvation like the children in Africa. It will also last long periods without water like in a drought. Some plants already have this trait, such as tobacco plants in Israeli, wheat, and soybeans. Finally, one last benefit from this is that it would be healthier. I like to eat a lot of butter and salt on my corn. However, if there is a gene inserted into the corn to make the corn more healthier, I can put more butter and more salt on my corn. In conclusion, genetically modified plants would not only benefit many right now, but also in the future. Also, if you're like me and love tomatoes, they put a flounder gene into a tomato. They insert a flounder gene because they don't hibernate. So therefore, they put a flounder gene into a tomato to make the tomato adapt to the winter. I love my tomatoes all year, so this is great, personally, for me.
Thank you, Catherine Clark, for the positives on genetically modifying plants. I enjoyed all those wonderful pictures. That's all we have time for today. Stay tuned as we investigate on the missing child report, the recent flu crisis spreading over western Michigan, and the Republican political campaign. Join us at 11 for weather and more top stories. Thanks for watching EMK News. I'm Susan Law. Good night.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
Doesn't this look like a burqa?
No, you're showing your hair and your forehead.
Oh, my face! I'm gonna get acid.
Your
thrown
face
in my
is burned!
That's horrible.
Thank you, Susan.